What's up, A to Z Sports live on this Wednesday. Hope everybody's off to a great start for your hump day. The week, I feel like it's actually kind of moving by pretty quick so far this week. But we're here to talk about a couple Titans assistant coaches who have landed on head coaching job watch lists. And honestly, I'm kind of caught off guard by this, but we will talk about who it is, what list this is coming from. Why are these two Titans assistant coaches on head coaching watch lists? And then I'm sure everybody will have strong opinions on our lead topic today. And then 4 NFL coaches who could be on the chopping block as we creep deeper into December. Coaching firings will start to trickle in the NFL after what has been a nutso college coaching carousel. So welcoming everybody. We're going to have a great show. We've got 4 coaches that we'll talk about around the league who could be fired, including the upcoming opponent for the Titans, Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. And Zach, my shade today is getting personal, not towards you, but it's getting personal. So we're going to have a good show as we throw shade at the end of every Wednesday show. Welcome in. Hope your day is off to a good start as well.
Yeah, I have 2 shades because I was out last week. One that I experienced in Dallas that I think a lot of people will experience over the next several weeks. So I think we can come together and agree on this shade. And then I found some shade this morning that I'm really adamant about. I think this thing is going to suck. This is going to be awful. This particular thing. And I will disclose what that is. It looks so bad. Oh, my gosh. It makes you cringe. So get ready for shade today. We're going to have a great show. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And a lot of people, look, that's why we broadcast on multiple platforms. So you can go to YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and get involved in all of our content. We're talking Titans this morning. We've got Primetime. We've got Tighten Up Podcast. We've got a ton of things going on our YouTube page. So go subscribe. All you got to do is go to YouTube, search A to Z Sports. You subscribe there. It's fairly easy. Also, Facebook. What's going on? Facebookers, more people will pile in over the next 5 to 10 minutes. As you guys do, please share the show, share the broadcast. We need to pop up in your Facebook friends news feed. How that works is bottom left corner of your screen. Share now to public. Sharing is caring, as we say on the show. And let's get this party started on a hump day, a shade day, and a lot to discuss throughout the course of this week.
Yep, let's do it officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered by BetMGM. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Zach Bingham. Make sure you follow us all over social media as we are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, and we go live every weekday morning at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, that Twitter thing. Just tweet at Twitter support for us if you could. That'd be great. But also hit us up on Instagram and TikTok. Again, you got to thank our sponsors because they make everything happen for our show, and they help out you guys. Renters Warehouse Nashville, the professional landlords in the area at renterswarehouse.com. Mandu, the Pulse of Fitness, 1 15-minute workout equals 5+ hours in the weight room. Mandu.com. Your first workout is free. Wilson County Hyundai, make them a part of your car buying process by checking them out in Lebanon or heading to wilsoncountyhyundai.com. And the Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Right there, Tommy says, I'm interested to see what 2 coaches y'all are talking about. And it's not necessarily the 2 coaches that Zach and I are talking about. It's the 2 coaches that ESPN.com is talking about, because I go to the ESPN.com NFL homepage probably, not quite every weekday as we are prepping and trying to find extra topics for the show. And what do you know? What do I stumble upon? And that is what we're hearing around the NFL when it comes to rumors of coaching changes, hiring, firings, and openings across the NFL. And there's a lot of good information. We'll talk about Urban Meyer, as there's a couple of things there. We'll talk about a surprise opening in the NFL as well. Maybe the end of the road for a couple long-time head coaches in their spots. But when I kept scrolling deeper and deeper and deeper into this article, I see this potential head coaching candidates to watch for the future, if not this upcoming 2022 head coaching cycle. And pretty high on the list. Now, the list is not in any order, but there are 15 names, coordinators and position coaches across the league. And I first see Todd Downing, offensive coordinator, Tennessee Titans. My eyes keep scrolling. I see Shane Bowen, defensive coordinator, Tennessee Titans. And I just go, man. I was like, I think I know why these names are on the list. Now, there are different reasons for both these guys to be on the list, but I was on the phone with Zach and I was like, oh boy, and Zach goes, we have found our lead topic for today, as Todd Downing and Shane Bowen are on head coaching watch lists for the future for NFL jobs. Zach, your initial reaction to Todd Downing and Shane Bowen being on this list?
Well, I think my first reaction is that it is a reach in. They're reaching for anything, right? They are grabbing for any name that could be possibly involved. And what they probably do is they go to some of the good or better NFL teams and go pick out and do like quick half-ass research on those coordinators, because national analysts let me vent here for a second. And I do this probably, I don't know, once a month at minimum. When you regard yourself as a national NFL analyst, that should mean something. Like, that should mean that you are astute on the entire National Football League, that is your craft, that you could diagnose and know. You should be able to name every effing head coach and offensive and defensive coordinator of every single NFL team. People are studying for college exams right now that have more difficult library time than these national analysts or claim to be. And I think they just throw spaghetti at the wall. Now, look, they know the big teams, but I don't think they know the ins and outs of the games. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, as a guy who watches all of the NFL games, who does not call himself an NFL national analyst, I feel I'm pretty intelligent. But these guys, they come out here and they just start spewing stuff. And I think this is an example of that, because they don't know the history of Shane Bowen or Todd Downing or what they've been able to achieve this year. And it is frustrating.
Well,
I'll be honest.
It's not even about what they've been able to achieve this year. And so, just for full disclosure, the two guys who are quoted, who are basically wrote this article, are Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano for ESPN. So
and
these
those
guys are
sometimes do good work.
I mean, most of the time, I would say most of the time, Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano do good work. I mean, they're national NFL insiders. They talk to a bunch of people. And so when they're going across topics like the Bears head coaching job, or maybe even Seattle and Denver and Minnesota, the Raiders, all these different head coaching jobs, like, they're pulling from things that they've heard from talking to people around the league. Like, is Matt Rule's job safe in Carolina? They're not just pulling stuff out of their ass. Like, they're talking to some people that have connections to the Carolina Panthers. So when they list 15 names that are potential head coaching candidates to watch for the future, in no particular order, there are guys like Gerard Mayo, who is the presumed Patriots defensive coordinator, because Bill Belichick doesn't really have a defensive coordinator. Byron Leftwich, who has been the OC with the Bucks. D'Amico Ryans, the coordinator for the Niners. Nathaniel Hackett, OC for the Packers. All those things make sense because you've got successful defense in New England, successful offense in Tampa, successful defense with the Niners, successful offense in with the Packers, and even Ken Dorsey, another former player, is the quarterback coach for the Bills, is on this list, right? Kellen Moore, the OC for the Cowboys, is on this list. And then you get to Todd Downing, and he just hasn't had enough evidence as an offensive coordinator to be on any list. Like, what has Todd Downing accomplished this year that shows that he should be deserving to be on a short list for any head coaching job?
Well, that brings up our question, right? I mean, that's what we're asking. I have my answer. I'm curious about your answer, but why do we think that Todd Downing and Shane Bowen are on a future head coaching watch list?
And I actually have different opinions about each coach. Like, I think there's a different reason for each coach to be on this list. And so let's go ahead and dive into that. So why do you think Todd Downing and Shane Bowen are on these lists as future head coaches? So we'll dive into that. But real quick, let me tell you guys about our great friends at the Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Whenever you guys get hurt in life, which is unfortunate, but life happens, injury is something that's going to come across, especially the older you get. You got to make sure you know who to trust. You know who to go to. Over a dozen doctors there with the Bone and Joint Institute that can specialize in any joint injury you have. They also just opened their brand new Brentwood clinic a couple days ago. So they've got Brentwood, Nolensville, and the main campus in Franklin where they can take care of you completely. So head to the experts at the Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org.
A to Z Sports, we are powered by BetMGM. Oh, man. Maybe I mean, you could say I don't have a problem because I'm winning, but last night I woke up in the middle of the night. I struggle to stay up for Lakers game, especially because I watched LeBron drop 30 last night, but I had a bet on the over first half. I hit that, and then I was like, I got to go to sleep. But my parlay came in because I had, this is killer. I had Talen Horton Tucker, if you know any about the Lakers
Never heard
roster.
of him.
I had him under 11.5 points. He scored 12 to kill my parlay. But that does not dissuade me from going back to BetMGM today, getting back on the saddle and winning, because I got some winnings from the weekend. I had a tough bet last night, but I'm back on it. BetMGM, download the app today. They're the king of sports books for new users. Risk-free bet up to $1,000. Use that promo code ATOZ Sports.
All right, A to Z Sports here live on this Wednesday. Our topic we're discussing right now are why do you think Todd Downing and Shane Bowen are on a future head coach watch list? And for if you missed it, if you're just jumping in a little later on, both Downing and Bowen were on ESPN.com's and how they phrase it is potential head coaching candidates to watch for the future, if not 2022. And in no particular order, there were 15 names listed, and both Titans coordinators were on there, in Todd Downing and Shane Bowen. So why? Why are they on there? And Bobby brings this up. Brian Daboll isn't even on the list anymore. So for full disclosure, this list doesn't involve the obvious names like Daboll and like Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City. This is more of here's the next crop of guys who are probably going to get a bunch of interviews that you're going to hear about when this coaching carousel starts.
Why didn't they put those on the list? I mean, is that just not what the list is? Or
a lot of the names that we've talked about the last couple of cycles were included in the other sections of this article, right?
Okay. So they were mentioned.
Like Brian Daboll was mentioned for the Bears job. Eric Bieniemy had his own little section of could this be his year, right?
Right.
And so this is a very long, well done article. This is just a list of 15 names that could be the next up-and-coming crop of guys getting interviews and discussions. So why? Lucas says, who in their right mind would want Todd Downing as their head coach?
I mean, Todd Downing's not getting a head coaching interview this offseason.
I wouldn't think so. And MB says the problem is they can say anything, as in Dan Graziano, Jimmy Fowler, because there's no accountability for their silly takes. Ty Kendrick says the reason is Derrick Henry. Alex says, I bet these analysts just look at the records of each team. Ronnie says, it looks like to me like the four-letter network is spitballing at this point. Scott says Downing should be on Chris Jericho's list, not as a future head coach because ESPN sucks. Steven says Todd Downing has lots of years in the NFL. Shane Bowen turned Titans DC around, or turned the Titans defense around in year one of being the actual defensive coordinator. And Aaron says, because there's a lot of bad head coaches and there's a continuous carousel. Okay. Steven says record is everything. And Jared says, apparently every coordinator is a future head coach, right? So Zach, I don't know. Do you want to go one by one with Downing and Bowen individually, or do you want to kind of group them together? However you want to go.
I can group them together. If you want to go, you said that you have different reasons for either of them.
Yeah.
I think somebody got this in the chat. And I kind of mentioned before, old Ed. Ed watches the show. Thanks, Ed, right there. Love. See, this is a good avatar. It's simple. It's Ed. That's who it is. So shout out to Ed Rogers. But it's a first place team. What they did, in my opinion, they went through the first place team because cut corners, essentially, right? And they looked at the coordinators at the first place teams. And the defenses and the offenses, if you look at the statistics, they're middle of the road. So it's not like one is worse than the other. Offensively, in total team offense, the Titans are 17th, and in total team defense, they're 15th. So right there in the middle, right? But that doesn't yield in my opinion, that doesn't yield your offensive and defensive coordinator to be possibly up for a head coaching position. Yeah. And here's what I'll add overall. I think they looked at the history of the Titans. They looked and say that may be a funnel system to new head coaches. Because if you know, and I'm sure they looked at this, is Matt Lafleur, former offensive coordinator at the Titans, he's now a head coach of the Green Bay Packers. Arthur Smith is another example, now the head coach at the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know why they put Shane Bowen on the list, because they couldn't rewind to a year ago when Vrabel had a leash on him. You know those parents at like malls and when you go to theme parks, the kind of, they got buck teeth, but they've got a rope on their kid. Like it's a leash.
What does having buck teeth have
and
to
they
do with
keep
it?
pulling them. They just keep pulling them. Well, that was Vrabel last year to Shane Bowen, but Shane Bowen grew up a little bit, and honestly, Vrabel grew up a little bit and realized, hey, I don't need this backpack on my kid with a leash so he doesn't get into things. I can kind of let him free and see what he does. Since Mike Vrabel has done that, the defense has performed well on top of getting new players. I have to add that.
But they've simplified things. Like Kevin Byard's having a much.
There's no reason you can't. It's too big of a jump to go from what we were last year to what Shane Bowen is this year to now getting a head coaching interview. And really, the Todd Downing thing makes zero sense. I don't get that.
So my over. So I've got reasons on why Todd Downing's on the list and why Shane Bowen's on the list. But the overall reason of why these two guys are on the list is the same reason why we spent the entire month of October bitching about the national media who don't watch the Titans. They don't watch the Titans. Like, that's the reason why these two guys are on the list, is because the Titans are a number one team and they don't pay attention to them. So they don't know how much the offense has struggled even when they had guys healthy.
So I think that's important. I don't think it's they don't watch the Titans. That may be the case, but they don't pay attention. I think you got it right there. Because paying attention is different than just watching. I mean, it is.
They don't watch them. They don't pay attention. It's the same, right? Same difference. Like, they don't watch the Titans like we watch the Titans. Where I see Downing and Bowen on this list, and I'm like, why? Like, there's no reason. Like, there's nothing that Todd Downing hasn't done anything to prove that he can be a head coach. Shane Bowen hasn't either. You know what Shane Bowen's done? He's been a really good D coordinator this year. And I can say really good because I think he's done a really good job this year with a tough situation because of injuries. The offense turning the ball over a lot, putting his defense in a bad situation, and still being able to force field goals in the red zone and doing a good job of that throughout the year. But for Todd Downing, the reason why Todd Downing is on this list, you kind of already mentioned it, is because of Matt Lafleur and Arthur Smith before him. Matt Lafleur got a head coaching job, not because of what he did as a Titans offensive coordinator, but because of his previous resume of being under the Shanahans and under Sean McVay. But when you start to see trends, guys like Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler follow those trends until those trends prove them wrong. And the Titans are on their third offensive coordinator in year 4 of Mike Vrabel because the two other guys got head coaching jobs. So that's why Downing's on it.
Well, and it's like college recruiting. You find a high school with a good coach that funnels in talent, you keep going back to that high school. And so that's what they did with the Titans, except they needed to look a little deeper into what Todd Downing has done this year. And look, we talk about excuses and reasons. The Titans have been decimated on offense, and they still have the 17th best offense, whether best or middle, 17th ranked offense without Derrick Henry. But Derrick Henry did so much for so long, and then you took him away. They had 2 flash in the pan wins between against the Rams, which I think that was an anomaly. I think that was a head scratcher I think they used adrenaline, which is good. They used adrenaline and big plays to win that game. The Saints, they kind of settled back into who they were. They took advantage of a backup quarterback who eventually got yanked in Trevor Siemian, and it came down to the wire. But then, and this is the problem, the offense came back to who their personnel was the last 2 weeks. They got beat by the worst team in the AFC and the Texans. They only scored 13 points. Then they got beat by the red-hot Patriots because they made mistakes, and they only scored 13 points. Austin, I've never been as excited for a Titans-Jags matchup this late in the season than I am this year. And the reason is, are they going to score more than 13 points?
And yes,
are they going to are those just fluky, weird things, or can they get right this week? And as you said yesterday, it's a must-win situation because the Colts are salivating at the Titans' losing streak.
Right. So, and you mentioned 13 points. Can they score more than that? Yes, they can. And why haven't they the last 2 weeks? It's because of turnovers. And especially look at the Houston Texans game by itself, right? 13 points, okay? But in that game. 8 possessions, the Titans ended with either a turnover on downs, or the intentional grounding at the end of the first half, the end of the half from Ryan Tannehill, right? So that's 8 possessions in that game where the Titans were moving the football. They either turned it over 5 times, 4 interceptions, and then they lost the possession because of the Chester Rogers punt return fumble, and then 2 turnover on downs in plus territory, field goal range, and then the intentional grounding. I mean, if you just kick a field goal on those 3 opportunities where that's 9 points, you lost 22-13. And so the Titans,
but they knew what the game was. And I think that's the problem with that I had with the coaching philosophy of it. They knew it was going to be a rainy, sloppy game. They knew they couldn't get behind and force Tannehill to throw to wide receivers that aren't very good. And they did the opposite. They got down, and in the second half, in a torrential downpour, they couldn't play catch up. Not many teams can play catch up, even if it is the worst team in the AFC. And so in those conditions with those players, so it's their own fault. Yeah, but the Jags are the same way. The Jags are a lot better now than they were. They are.
Yeah, but they're really hurt. We're going to get into some of the injury stuff for the Jags once the practice week starts today. But the Jags are really banged up. No DJ Chark, James Robinson's iffy, and they're losing to some other guys too.
They're not as hurt as the Tennessee Titans.
True. But the Jags don't have near the depth the Titans have. So
all I'm saying is the Jags are better now. And we knew this before the season because they have a first-year head coach, in which we'll talk about later with Urban Meyer. He's had a chance, and Trevor Lawrence has had a chance to at least settle in a little bit. Trevor Lawrence looked really, if you watched any of the Jags game at the beginning of the season, he was missing throws, like easy throws that he doesn't miss at Clemson. Now he's starting to make a little bit more of those. I'm not saying the Jags are good by any means, but I am saying the Titans are bad right now. And I think that is on a crash course for a possible close game, in which it shouldn't be, on Sunday.
Well, the Jags' season high for points this year is 21. They've done it twice.
Well, the Titans can only score 13 the last 2 weeks.
Well, and so here's the Jags the last 6 weeks. 7, 9, 17, 10, 14-7. That's not good. So the Jags are not playing that well offensively. They can't score enough points right now. Anyway, but all right. So Todd Downing does not deserve, or should not be on this list of potential head coaching candidates for the future. Now, Shane Bowen, I think, is different because Shane Bowen falls under a different trend, right? Todd Downing's the trend of Matt Lafleur, Arthur Smith, Todd Downing of Titans offensive coordinators. Shane Bowen is the trend of young guy who has accelerated very quickly. I don't think we understand how young Shane Bowen is just because he's got all the gray in the beard. Zach, Shane Bowen's 35th birthday is tomorrow. Shane Bowen is 34 years old. Again, he turns 35 tomorrow, December 9th. Shane Bowen is a defensive coordinator at 34 years old in just his 6th year as an NFL coach.
Well, that's why he had a backpack with a leash on him last year, probably with Vrabel.
because he was 33. That's crazy. Isn't that nuts? That Shane Bowen turns 35 tomorrow. And John Michael says, damn, bro, he looks old as hell. He's got that gray in the beard because he grows it out so much. He would look a lot younger if he didn't have the beard. But so, again, like, Shane Bowen,
to his credit, that's why he's trying to get big boy jobs. He's growing it out, right? It's a strategy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's why I usually, if I have a little scruff on my face, I look about 5 years older than I do. I just shaved last night, so I look like I'm 24.
I mean,
I shaved last night, I look 24, but if I haven't grown up, I might look close to my age. But anyway, so Shane Bowen is the trend of young guy who is going up the ranks very quickly. And I think Shane Bowen has done a really good job this year. I think last year was very unfair to judge Shane Bowen. And somebody said it earlier in the comments, I think it's scrolled out of my reach now. But if Shane Bowen, he's not going to get a head coaching job this upcoming year. It's way too early. But Shane Bowen, if he has another good year as Titans defensive coordinator next year, and he's 35, 36, now he's starting to get interviews. And maybe he doesn't get hired the first year. But then as he starts to build a reputation as a solid defensive coordinator under Mike Vrabel for the Tennessee Titans, then I think he will get a head coaching job before he's 40 years old. Right? Because the trend is hire the guy under 40. Now, usually that guy under 40 is an offensive coordinator, but still there are several. Robert Saleh just got a job. Like, as a head, there's still defensive guys getting head coaching shots. And so I think Shane Bowen, he's got 5 more years to do it, right? So if he starts to build a reputation at this young of an age, he has a chance to get that head coaching shot before he turns 40 years old.
Well, let's look at the history of recipe on how to get it. And you said it a little bit about Matt Lafleur. Matt Lafleur had the connections prior, right? The trend of Shanahan and McVay. That meant
Matt LaFleur interviewed for the Titans head coaching job. And he became the offensive coordinator. Yeah.
Right. So, and that year with Mariota, he sustained. He wasn't terrible, right? The Titans weren't bottom 4 in the league in offense. So you have to at least sustain. I think that's for an offensive guy. That's kind of the perfect storm, right? You have more of the resume, you have the network, and then you've proven that you can at least coach or call plays in this league offensively. Defense is a little bit different, though. For Shane Bowen to get a head coaching job in the future, he's going to have to increase this Titans defense into a consistent top 10 defense, and he's going to have to be a likable character. Saleh was a likable, respectable character from San Francisco that got a lot of play. The problem is you don't get a lot of play in Tennessee if you're a DC, right? Like, I mean, San Francisco is a big market. He went to New York. So it's going to be, I'm not saying it is impossible, but it will be and let's go back to the topic at hand. Mm-hmm. And the question that we have is, why is Shane Bowen and Todd Downing on these watch lists?
Right.
I don't know. It's way too early for them to be on watch lists. That's why it's a bad take. There's a possibility in the next 3 years for possibly them to start interviewing for head coaching positions, but not this year. And I think that's the tough pill to swallow. And as we've referenced, it's not paying attention to the situation. Mm-hmm. Shane Bowen needs another year to show that him being on his own, it's kind of like Vrabel, and I'm full of analogies today, but Vrabel was the strict parent in high school his senior year. Finally, Shane Bowen this year went to college and was able to live on his own a little bit, right? Have some freedom. But that was freshman year. This is freshman year. Shane Bowen has to prove another year in sophomore year that he can still continue to thrive on his own and not be under the cloud of his parents and be able to start moving more towards the real world. The good part is Shane Bowen has kind of started that trend, right? Like, he's got a good base. And if he continues this year, getting some pieces back, next year he'll get Caleb Farley back. They'll have another first-round pick in which who knows what will happen with them. They'll have to replace some guys. But it's just too early to think that these two coordinators should be on NFL head coaching watch lists in this offseason.
Yeah. So somebody asked like how many current NFL head coaches are defensive guys, and I didn't realize this. There are actually 13 out of the 32. Now, several of those 13 have been doing it for a bit, like Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, right? So those guys have been Ron Rivera.
Those guys are proven commodities in another era.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think that matters, right?
So I just listed 4, Rivera, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, and Tomlin. And then
now we're down to 9.
You can even add Mike Zimmer. All those guys have over 100 games coached as a head coach.
So now we're down to 7.
Right. So those coaches are Joe Judge, Sean McDermott with the Bills, good coach, right?
That's a good coach.
Robert Saleh with the Jets, Brian Flores with the Dolphins, Vic Fangio with the Broncos, Brandon Staley with the Chargers, Mike Vrabel here in Nashville, and then Dan Campbell in Detroit. So that's the guys, right? So and I didn't mention John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is a special teams guy. And so John Harbaugh so if you want to, there are technically 14 non-offensive head coaches currently. So I do find that
7 of them are the ones kind of up and coming. Mike Vrabel's only been a head coach for less than 5 years, right? Like,
yes,
he's still, he's gaining experience, but you can't put him in the echelon of the other coaches that you mentioned, like Harbaugh, Carroll, and Belichick and Tomlin. Those guys have just been doing it for a very, very long time. And even Mike Zimmer. But I do think it's for defensive coordinators or defensive-minded head coaches to get hired in the NFL, they have to be well-respected or a player's coach that they feel can ignite a fan base and have good presence, right? I think Dan Campbell is an example of that. I think Saleh is an example of that. I think Joe Judge is an example of that.
Joe Judge actually a special teams background too, but he does have some linebacking positional coaching in his history too.
Mike Vrabel, I think, was that. So those kind of fit into that category. And the best part is we'll find where the cream rises to the top. Brandon Staley was very well respected. Mike Vrabel was very well respected, right? Yep. But how does it work? Dan Campbell, best of luck. Congratulations on win 1, but it's really late in the season. And Joe Judge, looks like his ass is going to get fired because you're in New York and you talk about a backpack with a leash. Daddy's right next to your hip in New York. And, Saleh, they still need time for a couple of the other guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A to Z Sports here live on what is this, Wednesday? Yeah. Live on Wednesday here. But Todd Downing and Shane Bowen are getting some play from ESPN.com of guys who could be on lists for jobs.
Last thing on Mike Vrabel, because he's in this category before we move on to these coaches. Mike Vrabel, I think, earned the respect to get the head coaching job a handful of years ago. I think Mike Vrabel has earned this guy is a head coach in our league.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's something that you can build on. You're no longer in question on who your head coach is. That's the step to trying to get to a Super Bowl.
No doubt. All right, A to Z Sports. We got 4 NFL head coachings who could be on the chopping block, and we'll go through these 4. But first, Zach, tell everybody about Wilson County Hyundai.
A to Z Sports, our presenting sponsor is Wilson County Hyundai. WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Visit them. If you're looking for a new vehicle this holiday season, go to WilsonCounty.com. Visit Payne Bone and his team. They got the Palisade, which is a full-size SUV. They got the Sonata and the Elantra, which are sedans. They also have got the Santa Fe. They've got electric cars, hybrid cars, the perfect make and model for you and your family if you're getting a new vehicle for your wife, for yourself, for your son or daughter. WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Don't forget, download that BetMGM app. My shade today includes something that happened with BetMGM last night. Not their fault. User error and no, not even user error, just me losing a bet. But we'll talk about that later in throwing shade. But download the app, code ATOZ Sports, and with your first deposit, your first bet is risk-free up to $1,000. So download the BetMGM app, use that code ATOZ Sports for a risk-free bet up to $1,000. So take advantage of that. Go watch Brian Edwards and Alan Bell yesterday. They get you set for the football weekend coming up. And don't forget, visit betmgm.com for terms and conditions. You must be 21 years or older, must be present in Tennessee. And for gambling problem support, call Tennessee Redline at 800-889-9789. We've got 4 NFL coaches who could be on the chopping block, right? And we're going to start with the upcoming opponent for the Tennessee Titans and Urban Meyer. So this all goes back to the same article where Downing and Bowen were listed as potential head coaching candidates for the future, where Graziano and Fowler kind of set out the situation for some of these head coaches. And with Urban Meyer, could it be a one and done? It's gone horrible. They're 2-10. Urban Meyer has been a distraction several times with off-the-field incidents, with the bar in Columbus, hiring the fired Iowa strength coach, and then having to fire him after that for the racist comments that came out when he was at Iowa. And then just other really tone-deaf things that Urban Meyer has done in his first year as an NFL head coach. Will he be one and done? So we're going to go through these 4 coaches, starting with Urban Meyer, and ask, fired or will they stay? So Urban Meyer, fired or staying with the Jags?
I don't think that they fire him after this season. They had so many opportunities to already fire him, and they didn't. They're paying him so much money because he was the hot commodity of when is Urban going to test the NFL waters. I think he absolutely stays. I would bet a considerable amount of money on that too. The odds wouldn't probably be in my favor, but I think he absolutely stays. He's not going anywhere. Now, he could get fired after year 2 because the Jags haven't improved and his offense has proven not to work. Trevor Lawrence hasn't got any better, all of those things. The problem is in Jacksonville, and we've seen this, and he knew this when he took the job. You have to draft really well. This is not about free agents. They'll pay big money to some free agents, but if you look at their AFC Championship year in which they lost to the Patriots, all of those guys were drafted. Blake Bortles, Leonard Fournette, you had Jalen Ramsey. Like, those guys were drafted. That was the core of their team. They had some sprinkle into free agency. Like, I think AJ Boye was on that team. I think Calais Campbell was on that team.
Yep.
But you have to have your core guys of drafting. So for the Jags' sake, they should at least give Urban Meyer 2 to 3 years to draft well. Because he's going to have good picks.
Yeah, I don't think – and he had 2 picks in the first round this past year. Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence's running back in college, got hurt in training camp and was done for the year before anything really started. So I don't think Urban Meyer gets fired this year. They knew what they were getting into. They knew it was going to be a really rough season with a rookie quarterback. But I think it would be an interesting thing to watch of, can he survive the second full year? Because the clock is ticking on Trevor Lawrence's rookie contract, right? We all know this. Whenever you have a new head coach and a high draft pick at quarterback, those 2 guys are tied together. And the NFL franchise always chooses the young quarterback over the head coach. That's been the case in several examples across the past of this league. And so as Trevor Lawrence's clock is ticking, where he's got 4 cheap years, 3 after this year, before the 5th-year option that's going to balloon up to like $30 million at this point, Urban Meyer cannot waste more of those cheap years. Because then you have to pay a quarterback $100+ million that might not be ready for it, but you got to either do it or start over. And I doubt they start over that quickly. So I think he stays this year, but I expect next year to be a hot seat type of year for Urban Meyer. They've got to improve in the win category, and they have to be a more stable organization from the coaching staff. And Urban Meyer has to show that he can.
Yeah, some comments coming in, stay. Ronnie does say fired. Stay. It's just too early. So I agree with the chat. I think we all are in agreement. Urban Meyer will get at least another season to build. You paid him the amount of money and you didn't fire him when you had the opportunity to fire him. That tells you everything that you need to know. Plus, I've actually heard an interview, a podcast with Shad Khan's son that is an integral part of the Jags. There is a billionaire, so they got a lot of businesses, but he likes Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer, we see the shady outside thing, but what I've heard about Urban Meyer is if he's friends with you, he's nice to you. He's done some shady things that have brought his reputation down. Yeah, and you can't do anything about that, right? That's your reputation. He did that to himself. So I agree. I think stay.
Okay, next coach on our list, Zach, is a guy who's also won a national championship in college, but he has won a Super Bowl in the NFL. Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll of the Seattle Seahawks. Things are very interesting with Seattle because of Russell Wilson, and Jamal Adams is done for the year now too. The Seahawks are 4-8, and we know Russell Wilson has won it out in the past. It seems like there is a disconnect between him and his head coach, and Pete Carroll's been there for quite some time. His first year in Seattle was in 2010. He's won a bunch of games in the 11-12 seasons that he's been in Seattle, but fired or stay, Pete Carroll and the Seahawks.
I think this is more about Russell Wilson than it is about Pete Carroll. Russell Wilson, there was rumblings that he was going to leave this past offseason, remember?
Chicago flirted with him, remember draft time?
Yeah. And I think if Russell Wilson goes, in which I think he will, Pete Carroll is fired because they'll have a complete reset.
So Pete Carroll's also 70 years old. He doesn't act it, but he's 70 years old.
No, I don't think necessarily matters.
Well, it's about
you can't reset with a 70-year-old coach. I think is that what you're saying?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's the whole thing. Is Pete Carroll going to want to be there for a mini rebuild? I kind of feel like if Russell Wilson stays, Pete Carroll's gone.
I have an interesting scenario.
Okay, real quick. Go ahead with yours. Go ahead.
I think Aaron Rodgers could flirt with Miami this offseason, and I think that opens up. I don't think the Packers are sold on Jordan Love. I think
Absolutely
that's right. Russell Wilson going to the Packers, I think would be intriguing. But I think that also sets up the dominoes that Seattle's in a reset. They can't compete with the Rams. They can't compete with the surging Cardinals. And they can't even compete with the sputtering up and down 49ers. I think Pete Carroll is fired because Russell Wilson is no longer the quarterback. And DK Metcalf, you talk about frustration. That guy gets more post whistle penalties because he just gets in his feels and his hair turns from blue to red real quick. His eyes get out, and that he's going to be on Lonely Island because he's going to have nobody to throw to him.
Yeah.
And I hate that. Ole Miss guy. I like him, but nobody's going to be around.
Casey says, why does Pete Carroll look 34 and Shane Bowen look 70? I don't know, but that seems like the case. But I don't think look, Russell Wilson, I think if Pete Carroll stays, Russell Wilson's gone. If Russell Wilson stays, Pete Carroll's gone. That's how I feel it. I feel like the Seahawks might want to save Russell Wilson by moving on from Pete Carroll.
But Russ doesn't want to be there anymore.
And I get that.
And Russ doesn't. He's at the age where he doesn't want to reset either. He wants the trend of Tom Brady and what he's done.
Well, he's gonna have to reset if he goes to a different team too.
No, not reset with what the Seahawks roster sucks. Look at their defense is so bad.
Well, and they're hurt as well. Like I understand what you're saying, but I think the Seahawks might try to fire Pete Carroll to save Russell Wilson. Will it work? I don't know. I think Pete Carroll's gone. I think he's fired.
I agree. Here is one team that if I was an aging elite type quarterback like Rodgers or Russell Wilson, I find Denver this offseason very intriguing. I think Denver has shown that they can win games and compete with the players they have. I think Sutton and Judy and that defense and trading away Von Miller actually didn't hurt him that bad. But Teddy Two Gloves is not the answer. And God knows Drew Lock is not the answer. They figured that out too. And so go do what Peyton did in your own way. I like Denver this offseason as the quarterback carousel goes around and around the NFL.
New Orleans is somebody to watch too. I don't care how much money they keep giving to Taysom Hill, but New Orleans needs something better than that. And so, Davidson says Pete Carroll will retire before he gets fired. Maybe so. Maybe that's the case because the guys
they'll say, "Hey, we're going to fire you. Do you want to retire?"
Yeah. So again, regardless, I don't think Pete Carroll's the head coach in Seattle next year. That's how I feel on that. Okay. 2 more head coaches to talk about. Will they get fired or will they stay with their team? But first, let me tell you guys about Renters Warehouse. Talk about retirement. Pete Carroll could retire because he's sitting on a bunch of money. Renters Warehouse can help you get your retirement plan ready by owning Rent Estate. Rent Estate is a great thing to do because you get long-term equity, which means long-term wealth, and retirement plan ready just by renting out your property instead of selling it. Look, there's a bunch of different reasons why selling it might be the best thing for you. But if you just navigate and check out what Rent Estate can do for you, Renters Warehouse is where to go. They're the professional landlords in the Nashville area. Simply go to renterswarehouse.com to find out how much your home can rent for. They do all the work for you. They find the tenants, they price the property, they go on all the maintenance calls, whatever hour of the day or night, and they collect the check. You just get the money. Renterswarehouse.com is where to check it out.
A to Z Sports, download the BetMGM app. That's who we are powered by. Use that promo code right there on the screen, ATOZ Sports. They'll hook you up with a risk-free bet up to $1,000 for new users. Austin uses the app. I use the app. You should use the app. Download the app today. That's BetMGM. Very quickly, Austin, I got to call out G-Man.
Oh.
And I'm not saying G-Man likes this player, but he says Cortland Sutton way underwhelming. Sutton has 617 yards receiving through 10 games. He's been pretty damn good for two-glove Teddy throwing him the football. He's got more yards than the overpaid out for the season $9 million man Corey Davis.
You got more yards than your boy A.J. Brown.
Right? So Sutton, and the reason why I know that, Jimmy, on base, because I bet on Sutton. I am a prop fiend, and I've won a good amount of money on overs on Cortland Sutton. So as a second-round pick, Sutton and Judy, they got something. Well, I don't know what Noah Fant will be in the future, his contract situation. But
who is Teddy Bridgewater got hurt for a few games, right? Who was the quarterback for Denver when he went out?
Drew Lock.
Yeah, right. So again,
and the Broncos are weird. I mean, they beat the Chargers, who looked really good this past week. I mean, that's the NFL. I get it. Again, I will stand by this. This is December. I'll stand by this all offseason. If I'm a good quarterback, I want to go to Denver. They've got a good front office and I think a good core group. I don't know what their draft picks are, but and a mile high. They're a proven winner. They've won Super Bowl.
And you can throw the ball further there. So if you're an aging quarterback, you got extra arm strength. All right. So let's get to this next coach that could be on the chopping block. Mike Zimmer, fired or staying with the Vikings? I think Zimmer's toast. Right? Because Kirk Cousins is actually playing pretty good football for the most part, right? Like obviously there's situations that don't go the way, but Mike Zimmer and the Vikings just lose to the Lions, give them their first win. Dalvin Cook can't stay healthy, which doesn't help things, but the Vikings defense is breaking down. And that Mike Zimmer is one of those 13 defensive head coaches we talked about earlier in the show. I think Zimmer's cooked. I think he's fired.
I have to agree. I think the Vikings, the season's not over, but that loss to the Lions was kind of the worst thing that could have happened to them, right? And Look, it is his fault because they lost. It was on a last-second play, but I don't think that he has the capacity to. I think what the Vikings will go after is a offensive coordinator, like an offensive-minded head coach, because of what Justin Jefferson is. Jefferson, keeper on my fantasy league. This was one of my best moves.
Nobody cares. All right, I think I'm back. Something happened. Okay, I'm back. You guys can see me, right? Like I'm back. I think something happened with the internet in the area. Like you guys can see us, right? Like I'm back. Hello? Like you guys can see me? I think Zach's coming back. Okay, are we good?
Yeah, it was my Wi-Fi.
Same.
Oh, your Wi-Fi?
Yeah, both, because I had to jump on my hotspot.
Ooh, power surge. That was on Xfinity.
That's something must have happened in the area because we live like half a mile away from each other. But
right, and it was an omen. Ryan is right. The minute Zach starts talking about his fantasy team, it freezes.
I know. Thank God. I literally said the same thing because I thought you froze and I didn't.
I was getting to the point of Justin Jefferson being a top 3 wide receiver in this league and what he has become. And also, man, everything went fried. My thing, I put my ear to hear you, Austin. You were a soft whisper. You were a very soft whisper. So I had to go to the headphones. But we're back. I think it was a power surge. So
yeah,
internet down, internet
well, because
back
my
up.
Lights are still on. The electricity is still going. So I don't know if it was that. I just think the internet got knocked out for a second. Internet blip. But anyway, we're back on this. So we both think Mike Zimmer is fired, and we all agree that nobody cares about Zach's fantasy team.
I do.
Nobody else cares about Zach's fantasy. The internet.
Then that would be correct. But
yes.
You said nobody, and I am somebody.
Well, everybody cares about their own fantasy team, but nobody cares about anybody else's fantasy team. Nobody cares.
Unless you're in your own, if you're talking to somebody in the league. And I don't think anybody in my league is watching right now. But Justin Jefferson has been a monster, and they need to help him. I don't know if Kirk Cousins can win them a Super Bowl, though.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right, last coach on our list.
And I'll be honest, I don't think I'm leaving these headphones because, man, you are crystal clear.
You just look different than I do, and I like the no show headphone, right? Like I've got my one headphone in here, but you can't tell. It's clear. It looks good. It wraps around the back of my ear and everything, right?
Look, and Aaron and Eric, I care about fantasy league.
Eric says Austin must be last in his league. Look, Eric, I have not played fantasy football in the last 2 years. And the only reason I did 3 years ago is because we had an A to Z Sports Fantasy Football League. Because prior to that, I did not play fantasy football for like 3 or 4 years.
But that's one of the. Don't take offense to this, but that's why you don't make sense. You don't make sense. You're a sports talk guy, and you don't do fantasy football. But fantasy football helps your education and your knowledge.
Yes,
on
but
players.
I don't check it. I don't have time. I lose interest. Like maybe the first 3 weeks of the season, I'm done after that because I've got other things to do, and fantasy football is not. I'm not going to check my lineups or waiver wires everybody else working.
I'm surging to possibly win $1,000 this year. So
that's fine.
I think a lot of other people are too. They're in the leagues like that. You are the anomaly. Everybody plays fantasy football. You are the weirdo though. So you can't turn this around and be like, oh, you guys I don't have to. You're the weirdo. You're the wart. Everybody else is blemish free because we're in fantasy land.
I understand. Bobby says Austin's too cool for fantasy. No, I burned out. Like I used to be all about fantasy football, but I don't care anymore. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't.
And that's why you're weird.
I'm not weird.
You have the problem.
No, it's not me.
We're all users.
I prefer sports betting now.
And
Bobby says we don't want to hear about Austin's bets. I don't talk about my bets that much. Zach talks about his bets more than me.
Well, because I give out winners sometimes.
No. You give out winners after the fact. Like you don't give out winners.
I've given out winners before. I look, NBA props, NFL props. I think the like 3 times that I've given out props this season, they've all won. So hey, when you got cash flow, talk about winners. I've been winning my bets. So I got more money in the bank. Showed what you drank.
That's
so
fine.
I would follow the young man.
Congratulations. No, that's fine. But you keep bragging about him after the fact, which is the same thing about talking about your fantasy team. Anyway, all right, let's get to
ask me for some bets. I'll feed you some bets, some props.
Okay.
I like a Kirk Cousins over completions. I'll give you a prop right there. Over 32.5 completions or attempts, for Kirk Cousins this week. That's Thursday night. Boom goes the dynamite. Watch that. Let's see what happens.
All right. Sounds good to me. Okay. Last coach we'll talk about before we move on to shade. Let's go with Matt Nagy, head coach of the Bears. He is absolutely gone, right? I mean, I think we really all agree that Matt Nagy is screwed. He is fired as soon as possible.
Yeah. Chicago won't let them last. Like Chicago is the city. Chicago's very similar to Philadelphia, which is very similar to New York, which is like the Cowboys fan base. You just can't stick around and he's been really bad since his first year and being coach of the year. And Chicago is just too big of a market in the NFL. He's fired.
Yeah, he is. We don't even need to spend that much time on it because the Bears are a dumpster fire. Their offense has been terrible over multiple quarterbacks, and they can't allow Justin Fields to continue to be in this situation.
Well, it's the same thing of what you said with young quarterback versus coach. Coach
but Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence are aligned. They're both in year one. Matt Nagy is not in year one. There is data on Matt Nagy. He has already ruined Mitch Trubisky, and so you can't allow that to happen.
Well, we don't know if he ruined Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky just may be bad. It may just be a bad pick.
Right. So, but again, he was attached to, he could not develop Mitch Trubisky.
No. And the opportunity that he had this year with Justin Fields to do what the Patriots are doing with Mac Jones, they both had the opportunity, but one is the number 1 seed in the AFC and the other one is about to be fired.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So time for shade. Throwing shade here. My shade, it's getting personal. It can't be this bad ever again. That's how I feel about my shade. But first, let me tell you guys about Mandu. Got a workout in earlier this week. Mandu is the pulse of fitness where one 15-minute workout equals 5 or more hours in the weight room. Mandu.com. Your first workout is absolutely free. Full body electronic muscle stimulation. That's how you do it. So check them out. They help build muscle mass, help target hard to burn body fat. They help you gain strength as well without hurting those old banged up injuries or joints that might be bothering you. Mandu.com. Your first workout's free. And if you tell them A to Z Sports sent you, they'll take $100 off your first month when you sign up at Mandu.com.
This weekend, we talked about the Jags and we talked about the Tennessee Titans. We will be live because it is a home game. Live from the Mainstay. Come hang out with us. You see that party right there? It's going to be a party across the street from Nissan Stadium, the Mainstay. They've got 2-for-1 drafts of Mill Creek beer. You can't beat that. The Mainstay is where you need to come hang out. Pregame, halftime, postgame show, obviously live. Have your live notifications on. But for your postgame, after the game, walk across the street and come hang with us, drink some beer, and talk Titans, and let's see if the Titans beat the Jags or if they score 13 points. I don't know. That may be enough to beat the Jags, but they need to get back on track right there at the Mainstay this Sunday.
Time for throwing shade. We do this every Wednesday to wrap up the show. Get your shade ready. I see Elaine comes in the comments with shade on dart throwers who put earbuds in. We're there to have fun, chat, and drink. Come on, man. So I mean, this is hilarious. So
I've
Lane,
never heard of this.
Lane is going to some sports bar that has dartboards, and there are people who have earbuds just trying that's like that doesn't make any sense. Like they're just like, I'm just trying to get some shots up.
Do
Like
you throw darts?
no.
So I throw darts.
I used to like when I was like a younger, I don't go to sports bars that much anymore. But when I was younger and I was going out a lot more often, yeah, I would throw darts here and there.
So I like darts. Darts is a game I'm good at. And if I'm paired with the right person, I mean, we can play. I mean, we can win. I like darts because of the competition, but Elaine is absolutely right. It's really about drinking beer and having fun. Like weeknights, I'll go and call a couple of my buddies. We'll go throw darts at specific bars in and around Nashville that have dartboards. Or I usually play my darts on like after the NFL football season's over because you're watching football constantly, right? Friday night, you go to a sports bar, have front with a couple of drinks, throw darts. But I've never heard of earbuds.
It's like the guy at the basketball court who's just there to get some drills done.
And he won't play.
Yeah, like, he won't play.
You guys got 5. You need 3-on-3. Hey, bro, will you play?
He's like, nah, man, I'm just trying to get some sweat and get some drills done. I'm trying to work on my offhand. I'm trying to work on my right-handed pull-up.
But he's good enough to play, but he chooses not to play.
No, he's wearing a long sleeve t-shirt. He's got earbuds in, and he's trying to work really hard and get sweaty. And that's and then work on his reverse layup or whatever he wants to do. That's that guy. I'm with you. G-Man says throwing shade at Zach about Sutton averaging 60 yards a game is really good. Hey, G-Man, joke's on you. What's math? Math tells me that 60 yards a game is over 1,000 yards in a season. So 60 yards a game gets you 1,000 yards. So throw shade on everybody bragging about 1,000 yards.
You know who's probably not going to have a 1,000-yard receiver on their football team? The Tennessee Titans.
Yes. Yeah, that's for sure.
So I mean, man, G-Man on base. Look, strong support of the show, but you got had right there, bro. You went with shade. I threw shade back at you. You threw shade back at me, and then Austin, I didn't even have to say anything because you threw shade at yourself. You basically opened an umbrella in the sun and shaded yourself. You played yourself, bro.
Yeah, definitely. So more shade from you guys. Let's see. Noah says shade on the University of Miami and how they handle the hiring of Mario Cristobal and the firing of Manny Diaz. I think that's pretty fair as well.
Yeah, but they got to the guy. They got where they wanted to be. Nobody cares. All is fair in love and war and coaching hires. Right? I mean, like that.
Is that the new it?
Yeah, it's a new people are getting tattoos, wear t-shirts. Death, taxes, and March is one of them. And then the other one is all is fair in love and war and coaching hires. Because you got to do what's best for your family. I mean, that's what justifies everything. Hey, it's family. Lincoln Riley. Yeah, I don't want to be in Oklahoma. My family wanted to move out to Southern Cal. Brian Kelly. My family wanted to go back down south because he's never been south before at LSU. Right? Cristobal is the same way. My family wanted to be closer to home and back to Florida where I started my roots. It's all BS, but it's the truth. You can't because everybody's going to forget about it in like 4 weeks. Well, he left.
Did you see the Mario Cristobal answering Spanish questions in Spanish?
I did.
Yeah. So, and the joke was that would have been Brian Kelly if he took the Miami job.
Yeah, but it would have been gibberish.
No, I know that, but I mean, just how funny is that? And the crazy thing with the Miami job is, man, these gender reveals are going way too far. I mean, like the gender reveal of Mario Cristobal and Miami having a baby boy is going way too far now with what they're doing.
What is that though? Is that they're actually like, their jerseys are tight knit jerseys, or is that a joke?
I don't know. Looks like a youth small, man. And Mario Cristobal is a big guy, but he's not that big to make a real jersey look like that.
Well, because nobody watches the opening press conferences of Miami anymore.
I guess. I have no idea, but really crazy.
All right, before we move, I'm going to do a shade sandwich. Okay. I got first shade, and then my second shade is fire because I think this thing is going to suck. But my first shade is when I was in Dallas, and it's December 8th. We're approaching the holiday season, and you're going to be in and around. A lot of people online shop, but some people still go into malls. I went into 2 different malls because in Dallas, I was in Dallas last week. They have massive malls, the Galleria and North Park. And the problem with malls There are thousands of people in this mall. Thousands and thousands. Why is it so hard to find a bathroom in a mall? They have 2 bathrooms. They're tucked away and not in any visible sight. You can't find them. And if you got to pee really bad, which I did, you got to walk like 1,000 miles to go find it. And then when you ask somebody, they're like, yeah, would you like to try some lotion? I'll tell you, like at the kiosk, and you're just like, look, lady, all I want to do is find a bathroom. He's like, actually, you got to go down there, turn left, and then you go back around, turn left, and then right, and then down. It's about 500 football fields, and then you'll find it. And I'm like, Jesus, it is awful. So malls, shade on you. Find some bathrooms that are accessible to the thousands of people that are shopping at your place during the holiday season.
That's very good shade. So you have a second shade too?
I do.
All right. So my shade, I mentioned it was getting personal. My shade is on the University of Tennessee's basketball team last night for playing the most unwatchable college basketball game I have seen in some time between 2 teams that have a good reputation. Tennessee lost to Texas Tech 57-52. That's in overtime. In overtime, they got into the 50s because at the end of regulation, Tennessee hit a 3 to tie it at 44, and then both teams missed opportunities before then to not force overtime. Nobody deserved to win that game. They should not have played overtime. Call that thing a draw because nobody deserved to win that thing. And the shade here is Tennessee missed 36 3-point shots. I'll say it again. Tennessee missed 34 3-point shots, excuse me. They went 6 for 40 behind the line. At one point, Zach, I have no idea if you were watching this game or not, but I was while I was cooking dinner. It was driving me bananas. At one point, Tennessee was 2 of 29 from 3. So they actually kind of got hot at the end. They were 2 of 29, and then they went on a stretch where they hit 4 of 11. But they tied the game. They were 2 of 29, and they were down 41-38 with 2 minutes left. Vescovy hits a 3 to tie it to make them 3 for 30. And it was so annoying to watch. Tennessee had Josiah Jordan-James, who's a 5-star athlete, had a breakaway, fast break, nobody in range, where he could have just dunked it to take the lead, but his shoe blew out or something weird, and he fell down.
What did they say about that? I saw that play. Did they say his knee buckled or like
I think his ankle slightly rolled, and so he just kind of it made no sense. That game was cursed last night. It was so bad. They should not have played 5 more minutes of that thing.
Well, I don't know a lot about this Tennessee team yet because, I mean, nobody cares about college basketball during the football season right now. But what I think I know about that team is they will get bounced in the NCAA tournament because of what you just said, the shooting performance. They don't have the players.
No, they do.
No, they don't have the players in the setup. They're going to have a game in the NCAA tournament where they go over because that's their strategy. They're a 3-point shooting team now, right? That's why they're going to get bounced. They don't like Duke. This is why Duke and the Blue Bloods are so good is because they shoot a lot of threes, but they also have interior good ball skills and well coached. And I don't think Tennessee, it doesn't sound like, and I don't want to overstep because I don't know enough.
Yeah,
But
right. They do have
NCAA, they're going to get bounced because they're going to go 3 for 30, and you're going to be like, man, that was a hell of a run. They had so much potential and didn't meet it.
No, they do have shooters. They have like Powell.
But when they're cold, they don't.
And they played Madison Square Garden. Here's my theory on this, because Texas Tech couldn't hit anything either. But overall in the game, Tennessee shot 26% from the field, 15% from 3, and 50% at the line. Texas Tech wasn't much better. 31% from the field, 16% from 3, and 60% from the line. Tech missed 10 free throws. Nobody could shoot. I think it's the fact that they only got 1 shoot-around practice in that arena before they played the game. Like that, and I think that matters in new spots in basketball where you don't get accustomed to the shooting space because
Sounds like an excuse.
No, but again, like they said on the broadcast that they only got shoot around for a couple hours earlier. I guess it was yesterday or the day before the game on Monday. And Texas Tech is a good defensive team, so they were making it tough. But it was open threes that were just bricking hard. And so I feel like Madison Square Garden and the new venue had something to do with not being familiarized with it, but not that bad.
No one cares. No one cares. You play basketball.
You can be dismissive as well.
I will dismiss that.
Go ahead. That matters, Zach. You play basketball. You know that. And have you ever shot in an arena like that? It's very different.
It doesn't matter. You play that like
it actually does matter. It does actually a lot.
No,
ask any shooter. Ask any shooter. Does the arena you play in matter? Does the depth perception behind the goal matter? Yes, it does.
Then they ain't going to win the national championship because you're asking to play in a big ass, huge,
shut up. Shut up.
Stadium. No, don't tell me to shut up.
Yes,
I had a point. I dismissed your point, and I'm telling you the reason why. You can sigh all you want, but
talk to any shooter. It matters.
What are you going to do in the national championship when it's of a stadium, an indoor stadium of 100,000 people or 60,000 people?
Zach, do you not look at what happened as soon as the Final Four moved to those big football stadiums? What happened? Shooting percentages plummeted in the Final Four. That was a storyline for like 4 years in a row.
They've been that way for 10 years, 15 years. They've been playing in those arenas.
Zach,
those stadiums.
I'm not making an excuse. I'm just saying
you are, and that's what I'm calling you out on.
No, stop. I'm telling you, I'm not. But it absolutely matters, does it not? You've played basketball. You shoot basketball. You understand that. It does. It makes a difference. There is a difference between different venues and the depth perception. I'm not saying that's why Tennessee lost the game. I'm not saying that's why they shot 15% from three, but I'm saying in general, on the bigger picture of playing the sport of basketball, there is a difference. Does that make sense?
The only reason why you're talking about is that because Tennessee lost the game, though.
I'm throwing shade at them. My shade today is how bad they sucked last night.
I know, and that's why I'm saying I feel like you're backdooring an excuse
I'm not.
It was a new arena. They're collegiate basketball players.
Yeah,
they do this literally for a living because they don't get paid, but they do this for a living.
Whatever. You just took it and never mind. Whatever.
I just disagreed with your comment. You don't have to get upset. I just disagree with your comment.
Go with your second shade.
My second shade is I think this could be one of the worst movies of all time. I will say this flat out. I haven't seen the movie. I won't watch the movie because it reminds me of another movie that blows. Do you remember the movie Draft Day?
I watched it on the plane to my honeymoon.
that, and they used real NFL license, they got that because I think it was an NFL produced movie. Who starred in that? Dennis Quaid and Kevin Costner. I always mix up, but it was Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
You know what the next movie that's gonna blow?
Draft Day 2?
Kurt Warner's American Underdog Story. Look at that. Look how brutal this looks. It doesn't even look real. It looks bad. This movie is going to suck. And
is it a real movie?
Yeah, it's a movie. They're making a movie. They've got an actor to play Kurt Warner, but every time this happens, it never works out well. It always works out brutal. So old fat Kurt, early on in his career, that looks nothing like Kurt Warner. And here's the other problem. And here's my true shade is they get actors that are not athletic. And so when they throw the football, it looks like I'm throwing with my left hand because that's not their skill set. They don't cast the right character. They casted a guy who kind of maybe somewhat resembled Kurt Warner, but not really. This movie is going to suck. Shade on American Underdog. And I don't even know who the other actors are, but this is going to be like Draft Day. This is going to be one of the worst sports movies I think ever.
It doesn't even look like a B movie. It looks like it's got one of the lowest budgets I've seen from something that's been.
Yeah. Air Bud 5. I mean, that's
what it looks like. It looks like the Air Bud football.
Ed, it's a love story. That's going to make it even more brutal because you are going to try to attract any sort of person that is a football fan that wants to know about Kurt Warner, but really our target audience is a 45-year-old housewife that watches Showtime, or Lifetime, or 16-year-old kid watches Showtime. But like, that doesn't make any sense. If it is a love story, and I'm not going to watch it, it's going to be bad. I'm very curious to see what Rotten Tomatoes grades it. It may be under 30%.
Probably lower than that. Rotten Tomatoes is pretty harsh. And now we got Steven saying Draft Day was a great movie. And Bobby says, why are you hating on Draft Day? That movie was great. Rossi also said Draft Day was good. He liked Draft Day. Look, Draft Day wasn't good. It wasn't as bad as I think you're making it out to be.
What is another movie that you guys think is good then? If you're putting Draft Day on that level, I mean, one guy put it at great. No, Saving Private Ryan is great. Forrest Gump is great. Pulp Fiction is great. Shawshank Redemption is great. Those are great movies. Casino is great.
But I also don't know. You were saying it's one of the worst movi's of all time. It's not. It's not one of the worst. There's a lot of really bad movies out there.
It tried to be respectable, and it wasn't.
There's so many movies that are way worse than Draft Day. Draft Day is not good by any means. I watched it on the plane to my honeymoon because the plane was so full that me and my brand new bride were not sitting next to each other. And so it passed me, it saved me an hour and a half on my plane ride. But it is not a
good or different.
Yes, but you said it's one of the worst movies ever.
And I stand by that.
No, it's not. There are so many movies that are way worse than Draft Day. So many. Like it is super average to below average, but it is not one of the worst movies ever.
Oh, dude, it is not even close to average. It's a bad movie. If you want to look, I'll argue that it's one of the worst, and that's fair. But you can't say that it is close to average. It is a bad movie. That has to be confirmed.
It's a bad movie. It's fine. You go. It's a bad movie.
So now we're in agreement. I've gone a little bit further. You are now in the bad category, and that I can live with.
But there's way more bad movies make money, and that's just kind of how it works.
No, I mean, yeah, that's not it. I'm saying that movie is bad. I mean, I think
but there's
terrible.
So many movies that are way worse than Draft Day. That's my point.
Yeah, American Underdog Story.
Yeah, right.
I really want to know Draft Day, the movie, how much money it made. It'd be a travesty if it made more than like $300,000. Trivia. This is going to be too hard to find on the fly. Damn. Kevin Costner, general manager. That was such a bad movie. Good Lord. What did it gross? All right, folks. Now we've got confirmation. Listen up to this. These are cold, hard facts. That was one of the funniest things I've seen. The budget for that film was $25 million. And it made
Draft Day?
$25 million was the budget. It only made 29.5. Oh my. And it had the backing of the NFL. That didn't even pay for Costner's role, because he made more than $4 million for that role.
But is that above budget? So is it only a $4 million profit, or is it a profit of 29 on top of the budget?
The box office was 29.5 million.
Okay, so it was not. Yeah, so they profited what, 4? And let me just throw shade at Ethan Ramsey for being a dick. Why is Austin watching movies on his honeymoon? Bro, I clearly stated on the plane ride to my honeymoon, I watched a movie because me and my wife could not sit next to each other because the plane was so full. And it was a 4.5 hour ride to St. Lucia where we balled out for 8 days. Ethan,
okay. You don't have to make it personal. But Ethan is right if, in fact, but he made the mistake.
Yes,
watching Draft Day actually watching draft day on your honeymoon would be a problem.
Yeah.
But on the plane,
scrolling through all the movie options. I also watched My Cousin Vinny on the way home.
and plane movies notoriously are bad, right?
Yeah.
Like there's always on planes, like it's Godzilla versus King Kong or some crap horror film. Bro. They have bad movies on planes, and I spend a lot more time on planes.
Well, I'm an NFL. I'm a sports media member, right? So and I'd never seen Draft Day, so I'm like, well, here's my opportunity to watch Draft Day because I would never do it.
I think I may have watched Draft Day on the plane as well, and I couldn't finish it because it was so bad.
Well, I had extra time, so I finished it. All right, guys. Good show. We'll see you guys on a Thursday. I've got a topic for Thursday that for tomorrow that I'm actually Zach knows the headline of it, but he doesn't know everything. But it should perk your interest for Titans fans. All right, we'll see you guys on the Titans Thursday tomorrow. Buck Rising live with A to Z Sports Prime Time tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time. Also, the Tighten Up podcast, new episode out this morning as well on the A to Z Sports Podcast Network. The website's going crazy this morning with great content. Go check that out, A to Z Sports.com/Nashville, and we'll see you guys later on.
Adios.